before the stories, before the teachings, before even the impulse to ask why. There is a breath. It does not belong to you, and yet it fills you. It arrives without command and departs without farewell. This is where our journey begins, not with the telling, but with the listening. A kind of listening that doesn't begin in the ears but somewhere deeper, in that quiet well within us where the world pools before it takes shape. To approach these Zen stories, we must first soften, not with effort, but with the willingness to stop efforting. Like a leaf resting on still water, we arrive, not to grasp, not to analyze, but to allow. These stories are not puzzles to be solved, nor messages encoded with grand revelations. They are more like the wind chimes outside an old monastery, playing melodies only when the wind happens to pass. And yet, in those melodies, whole worlds echo. In Zen, silence is not empty. It is filled with meaning, like a bowl that becomes useful not for what it holds, but for the space inside it. And so, this beginning is not a trumpet blast or a dramatic curtain rise. It is a whisper that says, let the mind sit. Let the heart be heard in its native language of stillness. Consider the way morning light enters a room. It does not demand. It simply finds the cracks, the slits between curtains, the glass warming quietly. In this way, Zen enters you, not with thunder, but with patience. You may find yourself tempted to frame these stories as lessons. That is understandable. We've been taught since childhood to seek answers, to connect the dots, to win the meaning hidden beneath the narrative. But Zen does not hand you answers. It dissolves the question. And to reach that space, to even begin to understand what healing, letting go, and being present might truly mean, we must come closer to the kind of mind that dreams without clinging, that breathes without fear. There is a Japanese word, ma. It refers to the space between things, the silence between notes, the pause before the next footstep. It is in this space that awareness ripens. Zen lives in the ma. And so must we, if we are to meet these stories with the tenderness they require. Healing, in this context, is not about mending what is broken. It is about recognizing that what we thought was broken was simply misunderstood. What if your sadness was not a crack, but a window? What if your anxiety was not a flaw, but a doorway? One that creaks, yes, but opens to the vastness of being here now. Before words, there is experience. Before experience, there is presence. This is the sacred flow. The stories to come do not build upon each other like a ladder. They fall like rain, scattered, soft, nourishing in their own rhythms. And yet, as with rain, if we sit quietly enough, we'll see how each drop participates in the whole. How every moment, no matter how small, is enough. Let me ask you, when was the last time you simply sat with the sound of your own breath? Not to meditate, not to fix, not to escape, but just to be. This is the kind of presence these stories invite. Not grand transformation, but an unwrapping of what was never truly hidden, like finding a jewel in your pocket, one you forgot was there because you were too busy searching outside. And perhaps that is the deepest reason for beginning with a whisper. Because something in us already knows. We don't need to be told. We need to be reminded gently, kindly, without judgment or pressure. Zen stories have a strange way of doing this. They may appear strange, even frustrating. But like dreams that linger through waking hours, they have a way of tugging at the edges of our certainty. They invite the soft unraveling of what we thought we needed to hold. And so we begin here, not with a bang, but with a bow. Not with a doctrine, but with a breath. The old Zen masters knew that truth doesn't always arrive dressed in logic. Sometimes it comes as a smile with no reason, or a question that cannot be answered, or a whisper that says you are already home. As we move forward, remember this moment, not for its content, but for its texture, the quiet, the breath, the presence. This is not a chapter to rush through. It is the room you enter before entering the temple. A chance to remove your shoes, to exhale what you've carried in, to feel the wooden floor beneath your bare feet. The stories will follow. But for now, just this breath, just this silence, just this invitation to listen, not with the mind, but with the soul's own stillness. To truly receive a Zen story is not to understand it, but to let it rest within you, like a stone settling slowly at the bottom of a pond. You do not force it to sink. You simply stop stirring the water. We often think of stories as gifts handed to us, complete with wrapping and meaning, tied with a ribbon of clarity. But Zen stories are different. They are not given to you. They are entrusted to you. Like a bird landing briefly on your shoulder, they offer no explanation, and they do not stay. The art lies not in grasping the bird, but in feeling its weightless presence before it lifts again into sky. The world has taught us to take stories apart, to analyze, dissect, label, to flatten mystery into meaning. But here we are invited to listen without reaching, to receive without holding, to let go of needing the story to serve us, and instead, to let it simply be, with all its silence, its contradictions, its unexpected laughter. Zen is not a doctrine but a mirror. Its stories reflect not what is out there, but what stirs quietly inside us when we are still enough to notice. You may hear one story today and feel confused, only to have it bloom 10 years later in the middle of a mundane moment, while washing a bowl, while hearing a child laugh, while grieving something small but sacred. This is the nature of true stories. They arrive when you're not looking, and they settle where the light has cracked through. The old masters told stories with eyes that had seen through language. They knew that to explain too much was to take the wings off the butterfly. So they left their words floating just above the surface of meaning, close enough to see, never close enough to pin down. To receive a story like this, we must soften the part of us that wants to win meaning, the mind that wants to be first to figure it out. Instead, we become like the empty bowl held out beneath a tree in spring, open, patient, content even if no blossoms fall. When you hear a Zen story, ask not, "What does this mean?" but rather, "What does this stir in me? Does it confuse you? Good, stay with that. Does it make you laugh and then, moments later, leave you quiet? Let that be enough." These are not answers. They are koans, spiritual echoes disguised as puzzles that dissolve in your hands when you stop trying to solve them. There is a story about a student who came to his master full of learning. He wanted more teachings, more wisdom. But as the master poured him tea, he kept pouring until the cup overflowed and spilled onto the floor. The student cried out, "Stop! The cup is full." The master replied, "Exactly. You are like this cup. How can I show you anything unless you first empty yourself?" To receive a Zen story is to become that empty cup. Not empty of feeling, but of expectation. Not hollow, but spacious. You leave room for the mystery. You allow the story to shape you rather than rushing to shape the story. There is something inherently tender about this act, because it asks you to trust. To trust that not understanding right away is not failure. That not naming something immediately is not ignorance, but reverence. That letting the story echo within you, unanswered, is not passive. It's participation of the deepest kind. In a world that rewards quick conclusions, the Zen story hums a different melody, one that cannot be rushed. It asks you to be like a mountain that listens to the wind, not asking where it comes from or what it means, only allowing it to pass through the trees with music only silence can hear. Sometimes a single sentence from a Zen story will stay with you like the warmth of sunlight on your neck. No moral, no clarity, just something felt. That is the mark of a story that has been received, not consumed. And so, as we step forward into these 25 stories, remember this: the greatest gift is not the story itself, but the part of you that opens to meet it. The moment of stillness before understanding, the breath held in wonder, the space where your own awareness becomes the storyteller. There is no need to prepare, no technique to master. Only presence, only the willingness to sit quietly while something ancient and simple speaks in a voice softer than thought. Let the stories unfold like fog lifting from water, revealing nothing and everything. It may seem strange at first to be invited into a collection of stories where silence carries as much weight as words, where the unsaid hovers louder than the told. But Zen does not speak in the usual voice. It speaks through emptiness, like wind moving through the hollow of a flute. Without the hollow, no music. Without silence, no meaning. The deepest truths, the ones that press gently on the heart rather than shout at the mind, are often beyond the reach of language. Zen recognizes this, not with resignation but with reverence. It bows to the silence not as an absence, but as a presence too vast to name. In that way, silence becomes not the backdrop to the teaching, but the teaching itself. There is a well-known moment in Zen lore. The Buddha, sitting silently before a crowd, simply holds up a flower. No sermon, no scripture, just a flower. The disciples are confused, but one Mokkayapa smiles, and in that smile the entire lineage of Zen begins. No words exchanged, but something transferred, like a breeze moving between open windows. This is not metaphor. This is the living root of Zen. Truth passed from silence to silence, heart to heart. Why silence? Because the moment we wrap something sacred in too many words, we risk folding it into something manageable. And Zen doesn't wish to be managed. It wishes to undo the mind's grip on things, to dissolve the barriers that language, so often crafted for control, builds around direct experience. Think of how many times in your own life silence has spoken louder than speech. The hand held at a hospital bed when no words would do. The moment in nature when your breath caught at the sheer beauty of it all and you had no desire to speak. The pause between the apology and the forgiveness, or the look from someone who truly sees you without having to say it. Zen lives there. To speak of Zen without silence would be like painting with every color except the canvas. The stories that follow do contain words, yes, but they point to the space beyond the words. They function like fingers pointing to the moon, not meant to be stared at themselves, but to direct your gaze beyond. And if you get caught up staring at the finger, you miss the moon entirely. A Zen master once said, "When I speak, you don't hear me. When I am silent, you hear me clearly." There is both sorrow and beauty in that. Sorrow, because we are often so busy translating life into explanation that we forget to feel it. And beauty, because when we finally stop translating, we start to understand in a new way, not with the mind, but with presence. Silence in Zen isn't passive. It isn't the silence of nothingness. It is the silence of awareness, of the mountain that watches the seasons change without comment, of the cat who watches you without opinion, of the old tree who has grown without ever needing to explain why. This is not the silence of absence. It is the silence of presence so full it spills beyond words. In Zen practice, students sometimes sit for hours in meditation, no instructions, no spoken insights, just sitting, breathing, being. At first, the silence can feel unbearable. It can scream louder than sound. But if you stay long enough, something shifts. The silence becomes a mirror, and in that mirror, you begin to see not what you're thinking, but who you are beneath the thinking. It is here that healing begins, because silence does not judge. It does not interrupt. It allows everything, joy, grief, confusion, to rise and fall in its embrace. Silence, like water, shapes to what it holds. In Zen, this is the beginning of peace. Not the elimination of noise, but the realization that you are not the noise. You are the space that holds it all. And so the stories that follow, however curious or simple they may seem, are not meant to be consumed like entertainment. They are invitations to pause, to stop mid-thought and feel the quiet nudge beneath the surface. You may find yourself finishing a story and feeling nothing. Let that be. Sit with it. Watch what arises. Sometimes the story will echo later, days or even years from now, when your heart cracks open just enough to receive it. One master, when asked to define Zen, simply drew a circle in the dirt. Another walked away without replying. Another only laughed. Were they being evasive, perhaps? Or perhaps they knew that once you reduce something eternal to a tidy phrase, you've already missed it. The silence of Zen is not blank. It is the soft hum of being itself. It is the breath before a newborn cries. It is the space between heartbeats. The kind of silence that has weight, not in pressure but in presence. Like a warm shawl placed gently across your shoulders when you hadn't even realized you were cold. So as we step forward into the unfolding of these parables, hold space for the silences within them. Let the pauses speak. Let the unanswered questions linger. Don't hurry to explain or interpret. Let the silence lead you, not away from yourself, but deeper into what you already are. Sometimes, the most profound truths arrive not when we speak, but when we listen to what cannot be spoken. There is an old Zen story, simple in shape, but vast like the night sky it speaks of. It begins with a monk named Ryokan, a poet and hermit who lived quietly in a mountain hut. He owned almost nothing, just a robe, a begging bowl, a few brushes for calligraphy. His joy was the wind in the trees, the light on leaves, the laughter of children who visited him on the path. And yet one evening, while Ryokan was out walking beneath the stars, a thief crept into his hut. Hoping for valuables, the thief found only a bare room, a matter teapot, some rice. When Ryokan returned and saw the man standing there, he didn't shout, he didn't condemn. Instead, he looked around at his own emptiness and said, "You have come a long way to visit me. You should not leave empty-handed." And then, gently, Ryokan offered the only thing he had, his clothes. The thief, stunned and silent, took them and fled into the night. Alone now in the cool air, Ryokan sat naked beneath the sky. Looking upward, he whispered, "I wish I could have given him the moon." This is the story. And like many Zen stories, it hovers just beyond logic. Its healing is not found in a clear lesson, but in what it loosens within us. It asks what can truly be taken from you. What is it you're clinging to? What is it you're afraid to lose? Ryokan had no armor. He met the moment as it came, not defending, not resisting. There was no panic in him, no outrage. Only compassion that reached even toward the man who tried to rob him. And because of that, he lost nothing. The thief may have taken the robe, but Ryokan remained free. We spend much of our lives gathering, not just things, though that too, but also identities, stories, opinions. We build around ourselves what we believe will protect us, the idea of being right, the illusion of control, the comfort of possessions. But Ryokan's story suggests something softer. That maybe healing is not adding more, but releasing what weighs us down. He did not need to win. He did not need to teach the thief a lesson. In offering his robe, he stepped beyond gain and loss, beyond right and wrong. He gave not because he was defeated, but because he was already whole. And wholeness, unlike things, cannot be stolen. There's something achingly beautiful in that. A kind of weightless surrender that doesn't collapse into weakness, but rises into quiet strength. Ryokan didn't just forgive the thief. He recognized his own freedom even as something was taken from him. This is the compassion Zen nurtures, not the kind that fixes others, but the kind that remains unshaken in the face of harm, not passive but deeply awake. When we meet people who take from us our time, our energy, our peace, we often harden. We pull tighter around ourselves. We get louder, colder, more guarded. And yet, what does that give us? The heart closes, the breath shortens. The moon, though still shining above, no longer reflects on the water of our mind. Ryokan's story is a quiet call to remain open, to stay soft even in discomfort, not as a sacrifice, but as a form of presence too vast to be threatened. And still, there is something deeply human in the thief too. He came looking not just for something to steal, but for something to fill a hunger. And Ryokan, perhaps more than anyone, understood that. He met that hunger not with anger, but with offering. He saw beyond the act to the need behind it. And even though the thief likely did not understand what had happened in that moment, the story lingers, like moonlight, unclaimed, silently shining on everyone it touches. We all carry thieves within us, old fears, old shame, voices from our past that tell us we're not enough, that we must take or protect or hoard. And we all carry Ryokan too, the gentle presence within us that simply watches, that meets pain with grace, that can sit beneath the stars and say, I wish I could have given you the moon. In a world obsessed with possessions, with being right, with holding on, this story offers another path, the healing that comes when we stop grasping, the freedom in saying you cannot steal the moon. It was never mine to give, and yet I give it to you. Let it settle in you, this story. Let it move slowly through your body, not to be understood all at once, but to be lived into little by little. Perhaps one day, when something precious feels taken from you, it will rise up gently like a memory and remind you what matters most cannot be stolen. There is a story told softly in the Zen tradition, the kind of story that leaves no trail, but lingers like the scent of wet earth after rain. A young monk once approached his master, eyes full of questions that had no form yet. He asked, Master, what is enlightenment? The master, without a word, simply closed his eyes and said, Listen. The young monk strained. He heard the wind brushing through the bamboo grove, a bird trilling from a high branch, his own breath catching in his chest. But he remained confused. The master said again, Do you hear it? Stillness, then a sound, so slight it nearly escaped notice. A single raindrop falling from a leaf, striking a stone, plink. The master opened his eyes. That, he said, is the whole truth. This is the story. What can be healed in a single drop of water? What can be known from something so small, so ordinary? And yet this is where Zen lives. Not in the grand declarations, but in the overlooked. The sound of a single raindrop is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It does not ask for attention. It simply falls, and in that falling, a world is revealed. Not a new world, but the one that has always been here, waiting for us to finally become quiet enough to notice. Healing in the Zen way does not thunder into our lives. It arrives like rain on a paper roof, gently, patiently, so subtly that at first we might think nothing has changed. And then one day, we notice the ache has softened, the breath has deepened, the tight fist inside our chest has unclenched, not all at once, but like water shaping stone, drop by drop. We have been taught that healing must look like progress, that it should be visible, impressive, linear. But what if healing is the sound of one moment dissolving gently into the next? What if it's not something we do, but something we allow? The single raindrop in the story is not symbolic. It is exactly what it is, and that is enough. That's the beauty of Zen. It returns us to what is already here. It lifts the veil of urgency, of striving, and shows us that presence itself is the deepest balm, not because it fixes, but because it sees. Many of us carry wounds that are not visible, quiet griefs, small betrayals, moments we didn't speak, things we carry in the lining of our skin. These cannot always be cured, but they can be held, and in being held, they change. They don't disappear, but they lose their sharpness, like pebbles polished by the river of attention. To hear the sound of a single raindrop is to recognize that even the smallest thing has weight, that in silence life speaks, not in riddles but in touch, in texture, in timing. The practice is not to add more, but to listen more closely. Perhaps you've had such a moment yourself, when time slowed, when a drop of water sliding down glass became more than just weather, it became witness. When the hum of a refrigerator, or the rhythm of your own heart, was suddenly all the sound you needed. And in that smallness, something vast opened up. This is what Zen points to, not away from life, but directly into it. The single raindrop reminds us that wholeness is not elsewhere. It is here now. That nothing more needs to happen for this moment to be enough. Imagine, just for a breath, that you no longer needed to prove anything, that you didn't have to be healed to be whole, that the sound of your breath, the rhythm of your fingers drumming lightly on your leg, the way the sunlight touches your table, all of it was already sacred. The mind resists this. It wants something larger, something conclusive. But the heart, if given space, already understands. It has always known how to listen for the drop. Plink, the sound is fleeting, but the presence it invites is not. That presence is what heals. In the end, the young monk did not walk away with an answer. He walked away with an experience, and maybe, for the first time, with the understanding that enlightenment isn't a destination. It's a moment you're willing to fully meet. The sound of a single raindrop. No more. No less. There is a quiet moment in every artist's life when the hand falters. A brush slips. A line bends. And in that delicate misstep, something deeper than perfection begins to speak. The story is told of a renowned Zen calligrapher who, after years of mastery, was asked to inscribe a scroll with a single character heart. It was to be a gift, meant to hang in a temple, a symbol of compassion and clarity. He prepared carefully. The ink was ground by hand, its dark sheen mixed with a few drops of his breath. The brush, long and slender, rested in his palm as though it belonged there. He breathed, centered, and with one smooth stroke began. But as the brush swept downward, a flicker of tension, perhaps a doubt, a tremor, or simply the unpredictable pulse of being alive, shifted the line. The character, though still recognizable, no longer held the crisp symmetry expected of a master. A hesitation showed, a bulge in the stroke, a flaw. He looked at it. Then, without a word, he began again. This time the line flowed more steadily. It was good, but not alive. Again and again, 20 times, 30. The floor was littered with pages, each one perfect yet lacking. At last he paused. The room had grown still. The sound of his breath slowed, and without trying, he reached again for the brush, dipped it softly in ink, and wrote one final time. The character was imperfect, like the first one, and yet it breathed. That was the scroll he kept. This is the story. In Zen, there is an understanding that the moment we try too hard, we lose our presence. Perfection, as we often chase it, is a tension. It tightens the muscles, narrows the gaze, and turns the act of creation into a performance of control. But the first brushstroke, the one that trembled, held something no amount of effort could replicate: truth. That truth lives not in the symmetry of the lines, but in the moment the calligrapher was fully present. Vulnerable, human, we live in a world that fears the visible mistake, that urges us to polish, revise, correct until no edges remain. And in doing so, we often erase the very essence that made something real. We erase ourselves. The calligrapher's mistake is not about failure. It is about return, a return to what breathes beneath our striving, a return to the heart, not the stylized one of theory, but the unguarded, trembling one that beats beneath skin and ink and silence. How many of us have discarded something, an effort, a moment, a version of ourselves, because it didn't come out clean? How many times have we said, "This is not good enough," when in truth, it was simply honest? We call them mistakes. But what if they are entrances? Zen offers no refuge in perfection. Instead, it opens the door to what is, flawed, tender, quietly radiant. The calligrapher, by keeping the flawed character, acknowledged a deeper harmony, one not dictated by standards but by presence. In that space, healing begins. And perhaps that is what makes this story so gently powerful. It reminds us that healing is not a straightening of the line, but an embrace of the curve. That growth doesn't always look like improvement. It often looks like forgiveness of the trembling hand, of the awkward sentence, of the missed opportunity, of the moment you did not know better, but tried anyway. In the Japanese tradition of kintsugi, broken pottery is mended with gold. The cracks are not hidden, they are illuminated. The object becomes more valuable for having been broken. This, too, is a kind of calligraphy, a way of tracing our history, not to erase it, but to honor it. Your life, too, is a scroll. There are marks that didn't go where you planned, pages you wish you could tear out, lines that quiver with memory. But if you could step back, see the whole canvas, you might notice something beautiful, that the so-called mistakes are the parts that breathe, that your most imperfect moments are the ones that feel most alive. The calligrapher did not choose the perfect character, he chose the true one. And maybe that's the real invitation here, not to get it right, but to let it be real, to hold space for the trembling line, to know that in that tremble, your heart is speaking. Let that be enough. In a quiet village nestled between pine-covered hills, there lived a Zen monk known not for his sermons, but for the way he served rice. Each morning, he would rise before the sun, light a stick of incense, and begin cooking. The rice was simple, no garnish, no broth, no adornment, just grains rinsed in cold water and boiled slowly as the scent of cedar drifted through the wooden beams of the temple. Villagers would arrive in silence, lining up outside the gates, bowls in hand. The monk would greet each one with a bow and scoop rice with a steady hand. Nothing hurried, nothing withheld, and in that ritual something unseen was exchanged. Not charity, not obligation, but presence. There was a man among them, an elder who had lost his wife and son in a fire many years before. Though time had passed, he walked as though still carrying smoke in his lungs. He came each morning, not speaking, never meeting the monk's eyes, his bowl always clean, his face unreadable. One day, as the monk served his portion, he placed the scoop in with a tenderness so precise it seemed to weigh more than the rice itself. A pause. The elder hesitated, then looked up. The monk did not speak. He only nodded gently. That morning, the man sat beneath the ginkgo tree longer than usual, and the next day he arrived a little earlier. No one ever said what changed, but over time his gait lightened. His eyes began to follow the birds again, and one morning before leaving he bowed, not just with his body, but with his whole being. This is not a story of miracles, no revelation, no dramatic healing, only rice, only a bowl, only the quiet weight of someone offering the moment completely. This is the story, and like the steam rising from that simple meal, its message is subtle, easily missed if we rush through. We are often taught that healing requires something grand: therapy, transformation, retreat, breakthrough. But what if healing sometimes begins with the smallest acts done with complete attention? What if it lies not in what we fix, but in how we hold what has been broken? The rice bowl becomes a metaphor. It is the vessel of our receiving, and also the shape of our wounds. Empty, open, waiting. It asks nothing more than to be met, not with answers, but with presence. The monk understood that to nourish someone's body is also to feed what we cannot see, the part of a person that longs not for perfection, but for acknowledgement, that says, I see you here, still breathing, still carrying it all, and you are not alone. Healing, Zen reminds us, does not always announce itself. It is not always loud. Often it is quiet, uneventful. It arrives like rice, plain, familiar, unremarkable on the surface, but inside it holds warmth, care, continuity. A small act that says you are worth showing up for. And perhaps this is what we forget, that our healing is not only ours, that we are woven into each other's stories in ways we cannot measure. The rice bowl, passed hand to hand, becomes a shared space, a quiet transaction of care, of dignity, of being witnessed without demand. How many times have you offered or received something small, tea, a smile, a silent walk, and felt something shift within? Not because anything changed, but because for a moment, there was no need to be anything else. The Zen tradition honors these spaces, not as lesser acts, but as sacred ones. The sweeping of a floor, the serving of food, the cleaning of a bowl, all gestures become sutras if done with wholeheartedness. There is no hierarchy between the spiritual and the ordinary. They meet in the breath, and that too is healing. The return of what we thought was mundane into the realm of the holy. We live in a world that encourages dramatic transformation, fast results, visible change. But the monk reminds us that slowness, repetition, and simplicity can be just as powerful. That showing up each day, imperfect, quiet, but steady, can mend what once felt unrepairable. We do not need to fix the people we love. We do not need to fix ourselves. We need only to be the bowl that holds the warmth, the hand that offers the rice, the heart that stays present through the seasons of another's silence. So if you find yourself wondering how to begin again, how to soothe what still aches, perhaps you do not need new tools or new answers. Perhaps all you need is to light the incense, boil the rice, show up. And when someone comes to you with their own quiet grief, their bowl held out, not asking, not demanding, but simply open, may you remember this, monk. May you serve what you have with what gentleness you can, and trust that something wordless will meet you both in the steam rising between hands. There is a wooden bridge in the mountains of Japan, narrow, unpainted, its slats worn smooth by the passing of feet and rain. It connects nothing remarkable, a trail to a hill, a path to a stream. But it is remembered in the story of a monk who once paused upon it, and in that pause changed the shape of his life. The monk, whose name has been lost to time, was traveling between temples. His journey was not urgent, but it pressed on him nonetheless. He carried, as we often do, a mind full of noise, questions about his practice, doubts about his worth, echoes of things said and left unsaid. And though the world around him was vast and blooming with spring, he walked as if through fog, missing each petal that fell, until the bridge. Halfway across, he stopped, not from fatigue nor fear, but something subtle and clear arose within him. A quiet nudge like a bell struck from the inside. He stood still, and he breathed. One breath. Not deep, not strained. Just one breath taken with such presence that the whole world seemed to lean in. The trees rustled. The stream hummed. A bird launched from a branch and glided across the sky. And then he walked on. That is the story. There is no miracle here. No profound event. No sudden awakening with light pouring from the heavens. Only a moment of breath. And in that breath, the return to something forgotten. This. Just this. So often, we pass over bridges without seeing them. The literal ones, yes, but also the metaphorical. The transitions between seasons of life, between thoughts, between one version of ourselves and the next. We rush through, eager to be somewhere else. We hold our breath without knowing, waiting for what's next, missing what is. But Zen lives in the pauses, in the quiet span between intention and action. The bridge is not just the thing that gets us from one side to another. It is the invitation to stop moving long enough to realize we are already home. The healing in this story doesn't come from anything gained. It comes from what is let go. The monk lets go of the need to arrive. He surrenders for just one breath, the clinging to where he should be, who he should become. And in that breath, he is whole. This is the secret of Zen, if it has any, that the door to peace is not hidden, only overlooked. It is here in the act of walking, in the sound of your own breath, in the bridge beneath your feet. You don't need to be a monk or in the mountains or lost in thought to find that place. It is waiting in the hallway of your home, in the line at the grocery store, in the few seconds before you answer the phone. The bridge is wherever you pause long enough to remember that this moment, not the next, not the last, is the only one that asks for your full attention. And that one breath, if met with presence, can become a prayer. Not a prayer of asking, a prayer of being. Healing in this way is gentle. It doesn't demand that we fix ourselves. It only asks that we return, again and again, one breath at a time. Each breath a small reunion with the part of us that's always been steady beneath the current. Perhaps you've had this experience, a moment when the world suddenly seemed to hold its breath, and in that stillness you felt something settle. Not a solution, but a kind of knowing. The kind that says, I am here, and that is enough. The monk didn't stay on the bridge forever. Life called him forward. The trail continued. But he carried something different with him. A slowness, maybe, or a softness that had not been there before. That's what presence does. It doesn't fix our problems or erase our past, but it softens the hardness. It gives the heart space to unfold. It lets the body exhale. It reminds us that every crossing, no matter how small, is a chance to wake up. So wherever you are, however hurried your path may feel, let this story offer you a bridge of your own. Not one you must find, but one you can build, right now, with a single breath. Stop, breathe, be where your feet are, and then walk on gently. Two monks were traveling together on a long journey between temples. The sky was thick with the scent of rain, and the path beneath their feet had become slick with mud. Soft, sucking, the kind that clings to every step and never quite lets go. They walked in silence, the way monks often do, their minds focused not on arrival, but on awareness. As they turned a bend in the road, they came upon a young woman standing at the edge of a wide puddle. She was dressed in silks, her sandals held delicately in one hand, the other hovering above the ground in hesitation. She was clearly distressed, unable to cross without soiling her clothing, unsure how to ask for help. Without a word, the older monk stepped forward. He lifted her gently in his arms and carried her across the muddy stretch. She nodded softly, a bit stunned by the gesture, and continued on her way. The monk, too, said nothing more. He returned to the path, brushing the mud from his robes as best he could, and resumed walking beside his companion. Then, finally, the younger monk, his brow furrowed, could no longer contain his thoughts. "Brother," he said, "we are monks. We've taken vows not to touch women. How could you lift her like that? How could you forget our discipline?" The elder monk walked a few more steps, then turned with a gentle smile. "I put her down 2 hours ago," he said. "Why are you still carrying her?" This is the story, and it drifts into us like a breeze through reeds. Quiet, unassuming, and utterly transformative. How many times have we done the same? Held on to something long after it has passed. A moment, a mistake, a conversation that stung, an expectation unmet. The act itself is long gone, but its echo lingers in us, looping, repeating, thickening like the mud that clings to sandals. We think we've moved on, but inside, we're still at the edge of that puddle. Zen offers us no elaborate strategy for release. Instead, it offers a mirror, a question that is both sharp and kind. What are you still carrying? Letting go in this sense is not forgetting. It is remembering differently. It is meeting the past with enough tenderness to allow it to soften. It is seeing the story you keep retelling and realizing you are no longer required to hold it. The younger monk believed he was protecting something sacred, rules, vows, ideals. But in doing so, he carried judgment, tension, a quiet kind of resentment that hardened as it traveled. The older monk, on the other hand, responded to what the moment asked of him, without attachment to what it meant about him. He acted with presence, and then he released. This is the deep practice of letting go, not as a punishment or suppression, but as a compassionate return to now, to this step, to this breath. There is a kind of spiritual weight we carry when we confuse righteousness with awareness. We think discipline means never straying from the path. But Zen shows us the path is not always straight. Sometimes it dips into mud. Sometimes it asks us to lift another, not because it's allowed, but because it's needed. And when the moment has passed, it invites us to release it, like breath from the lungs. Letting go doesn't mean we forget our values. It means we hold them with gentleness, with flexibility, with humanity. It means we recognize that the map is not the terrain, and that sometimes the terrain asks us to pause, bend down, and act with kindness, even if that act doesn't fit into the story we've been telling ourselves. The mud will always be there in some form. The conversation that hurt, the failure you replay, the image of who you thought you should be. But it only clings if you let it. The road goes on, wide and open. The question is, are you walking it free, or are you dragging the past behind you? Imagine what your body might feel like if you set it down. The judgment, the shame, the endless self-commentary. What might open up in you if you allowed that story to dissolve into the earth, like water soaking into soil? The older monk teaches us that it is possible to act and then release, to help and then move on, to serve and not become attached to the act of serving. His gesture wasn't rebellious, it was free. And from that freedom, true compassion blooms. So today, if something rises in you, an old resentment, a worry from yesterday, a rule you've used to measure your worth, pause. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel the air in your lungs. Ask yourself, have I already crossed the muddy road? If so, perhaps it is time to stop carrying what has long since ended. The path ahead is clear, and you are already lighter than you know. There is a story that begins with a cup, a simple, fragile vessel made of clay and glazed in the soft hues of earth and sky. This cup belonged to a Zen teacher who cherished it not for its beauty, but for its use. Every morning, it was filled with tea, warmed by the hands that held it, its quiet presence a companion through the stillness of dawn. One day, the cup slipped. It fell from the teacher's grasp and shattered against the wooden floor. The sound was sharp, sudden, a breaking of more than just ceramic. In that moment, the teacher did not rush to gather the pieces, nor did he scold himself for carelessness. Instead, he sat quietly, observing the shards as they lay scattered, each one catching the light differently. The broken cup was no longer whole, but it was still there, still holding space. The teacher smiled softly and said, "The cup is broken, but its emptiness remains." This story carries within it a profound invitation to see our own fractures not as failures, but as parts of our wholeness. In a world that prizes perfection, we fear the cracks. We hide the moments when we break under the weight of life's pressures, when relationships shatter, when dreams slip through our fingers. Yet, like the cup, these fractures do not erase our essence. They transform it. There is a Japanese art form called kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with lacquer mixed with powdered gold. The cracks are highlighted, not hidden. The object becomes more beautiful for having been broken, its history embraced, its imperfections celebrated. Healing, in this sense, is not about returning to what was, but about honoring what is. The broken cup teaches us that letting go is not about discarding the past, but about carrying it differently. It is about making peace with the parts of ourselves that bear the marks of life's trials. When we cling to wholeness as an impossible ideal, we become brittle. We avoid risks, avoid vulnerability, avoid the messiness that makes us human. But the teacher's broken cup shows us another way: openness to impermanence, tenderness toward our own fragility. Imagine holding a cup that has been broken and repaired with gold. It is heavier now, yes, but it also holds light differently. The cracks become channels through which the beauty of experience flows, and so do we. Perhaps you carry your own broken pieces, loss, regret, shame, disappointment. These are not weights meant to sink you, but threads woven into the fabric of your being. To heal is not to smooth over these threads, but to see how they shimmer when held in the light of compassion. The teacher's smile after the break is not a denial of pain, but an acceptance of reality. There is grace in sitting with the shards, in letting silence fill the spaces between them. This is the kind of letting go that is not loss, but transformation. It reminds us that healing can be gentle. It does not always come in grand gestures or swift resolutions. Sometimes it arrives like the slow mend of clay, quiet, steady, a patience rooted in love. So when you feel broken, know that you are still whole, that your cracks can hold light, that your emptiness can be a vessel. And in that, there is freedom. There is a figure in the rich tapestry of Zen imagery known as the Laughing Buddha, often depicted as a joyful, rotund monk, his belly round as the harvest moon, carrying a cloth bag slung casually over his shoulder. This bag, like the man himself, is a mystery. It appears empty, yet it holds everything. Sometimes treasures, sometimes sorrows, sometimes laughter itself. The story goes that the Laughing Buddha wandered from village to village, never staying long, never asking for much. Wherever he went, he offered the contents of his bag, gifts that were never quite seen but always felt. To children he gave hope, to the weary a lightness that lifted burdens, to the lonely a smile that needed no words. One day a disciple asked him, "What do you carry in your bag? How can it hold so much and yet seem so light?" The Buddha laughed, the sound like wind through bamboo, and said, "It is not what I carry, but what I let go of." This simple yet profound response invites us to consider the true nature of burden and freedom. We carry many things: pain, regrets, expectations, fears. They pile up in the corners of our hearts, heavy as stones, obscuring the lightness that is our birthright. We think that holding on keeps us safe, that if we let go, we might lose something vital. Yet the Laughing Buddha shows us the paradox. It is only when we release our grip that our bag becomes light enough to truly carry what matters. The bag is a metaphor for the self, the container we bring through life. We fill it with memories and stories, identities and defenses. But the weight of these things can bend our backs and cloud our vision. The Buddha's bag teaches us that healing comes not from accumulation, but from the willingness to shed. Imagine yourself walking through a forest, carrying a heavy sack. Each step is harder, slower. Then, as you reach a clearing, you pause and open the bag. Slowly, gently, you begin to empty it, letting go of stones, old letters, worn-out shoes. As the sack lightens, your step quickens, your breath deepens, and suddenly the journey feels possible again. This story doesn't urge us to abandon responsibility or forget the past. It invites a gentle disentangling, an invitation to notice what we carry because we must, and what we carry simply because we fear to release it. Healing unfolds in the space where we recognize that our bag can be empty and still whole, that we can hold laughter, sorrow, love, and loss without being crushed. That to let go is not to lose, but to make room. The Laughing Buddha's carefree smile is not a mask, but a reflection of a heart that has learned this truth. He carries nothing and everything, and in that paradox, he teaches us how to walk lighter, breathe easier, and live more freely. So when you feel your own bag growing heavy, full of worries or wounds, remember the Laughing Buddha's laugh, like wind rustling bamboo, and ask yourself, what can I let go of now? What might become possible if I trusted that the lightness I seek is already within me, waiting to be released? This is not a call to perfection or denial. It is an invitation to kindness toward yourself, an acknowledgement that some burdens are ours to carry only for a time, and some can be laid down softly in the shade of a quiet tree. Let your bag be a place of openness, not weight. Let it hold the laughter that comes when we stop clutching so tightly. And in that letting go, find the healing that flows like wind, gentle, unseen, but ever present. A single feather drifting on the wind, light as a whisper, delicate as a prayer. It tumbles and turns, floating without direction, yet always moving, always present in the moment of its flight. There is a story in Zen that tells of a man who found such a feather caught in the branches of a cherry blossom tree. He reached out to touch it, but before his fingers could meet its softness, the wind lifted the feather away, carefree, unbound, and utterly at ease. The man chased after it, trying to grasp it, to hold it still, but the feather danced beyond his reach, carried by invisible currents that could not be controlled. Frustrated, he sat beneath the tree, watching as the feather disappeared into the sky. This simple image of the feather and the wind holds a profound teaching about letting go. We are often like that man, clutching tightly to thoughts, emotions, memories, holding on as if our peace depends on them. We try to steady the unsteady, to control the uncontrollable, but the more we grasp, the more we tether ourselves to struggle. The feather reminds us of a different way, a way of surrender, of trust, of openness. To let go is not to abandon life, but to live in harmony with its rhythms. Like the feather, we are meant to float, not by resisting the wind, but by yielding to its gentle force. This yielding is not weakness. It is a courageous act of allowing life to carry us where it will, without fear or grasping. Consider the way wind moves through bamboo, a soft rustling, a bending but never breaking. It is alive, it is free, and it is fully present. The bamboo does not fight the wind, it welcomes it, dances with it, and in that dance finds its strength. Letting go is the dance of the feather and the wind. It is the relinquishing of the illusion that holding on will keep us safe or whole. It is the quiet realization that peace comes not from possession but from release. In our lives we hold many feathers, resentments, regrets, fears, attachments. Some we carry because they shape our story, others because we do not know how to release them. But the story of the feather asks us, what might happen if you let the wind carry what no longer serves you? Healing begins when we open our hands, when we stop fighting the currents within and without, when we trust that the wind is neither enemy nor threat, but companion. This trust is not easy. It requires vulnerability, a willingness to be carried, even when the path is unseen. But it is in this openness that freedom is found. Like the feather, we become light. Like the bamboo, we become resilient. The feather's flight is a meditation on impermanence and grace. It shows us that life is a series of moments, each one fragile and fleeting. To hold on too tightly is to miss the beauty of the drift. So the next time you find yourself clutching a burden, a memory, a fear, remember the feather caught briefly in the branches, lifted again by the wind's quiet hand. Remember the freedom in release, the peace in surrender. Let yourself be the feather. Let yourself be the wind. And in that dance, find the healing that comes not from holding on, but from letting go. A monk once walked through a village market, a place bustling with life, color, noise, and sometimes with the weight of judgment and provocation. As he passed, a man in the crowd shouted insults, cruel words aimed sharply like arrows meant to wound. The villagers held their breath, waiting for the monk to respond, expecting anger, defense, or retreat. But the monk did not flinch. He did not raise his voice or turn away. He simply continued on, his face serene, his eyes calm, as if the words were nothing more than wind brushing through the leaves. Later, when asked how he could remain so still, so unmoved by cruelty, the monk said, "The arrow that flies at you can only hurt if you choose to hold it. I let it pass." This story unfolds gently, yet its meaning resonates like a bell through the silence of our own inner turmoil. How often do we carry the arrows of others? Words, judgments, offenses, not just in the moment, but long after they are spoken. We clutch them tightly, nursing wounds that deepen not from the original sting, but from our refusal to release. The monk's teaching is not about suppression or denial. It is a profound practice of non-attachment, not just to things, but to reactions themselves. It is the awareness that pain and anger only bind us if we grasp them, if we make them part of our story. Consider how wind moves through a bamboo forest. When a gust arrives, the bamboo bends gracefully, yielding to the force without breaking. It does not resist or fight, but neither does it collapse. It holds its center through flexibility. In this way, the monk embodies the bamboo's wisdom, fluid, rooted, and unshakable. In our daily lives, this lesson asks us to observe the arrows as they fly, whether criticism, hurt, or provocation, and to meet them with a pause, a breath, a choice. Will we catch and clutch, or will we let them pass through, returning to stillness? There is freedom in this letting go. Freedom from the chains of resentment, from the burden of reactive pain. Freedom that arises not from external circumstances, but from the inner landscape we cultivate. It is not an easy path. It demands mindfulness and courage, because to not react is not to be passive. It is to hold space for a deeper awareness. To say, "This moment does not define me." To recognize that the wounds we carry are often wounds we have chosen to nurse. Healing begins when we stop adding to our pain, when we refuse to let the arrows pierce deeper by our own grasp. The monk did not deny the existence of cruelty. He met it with presence that could not be disturbed, and in that meeting he found peace. This story invites us to practice that same stillness, not as a distant ideal, but as a tangible choice in the midst of everyday life. When the world speaks sharply, when the heart trembles, when words become arrows, may we, like the monk, learn to be the bamboo, to bend, to breathe, to let the wind carry away what no longer serves. In this, we find not weakness but strength, not absence but fullness, not silence but a deep, compassionate voice that whispers, "I am here unbroken." May this teaching settle within you like the wind through bamboo, weightless, compassionate, and deeply alive. There is a story of a monk who, during a quiet afternoon in the monastery garden, was handed a ripe tangerine. It was bright and fragrant, the color of the sun dipping behind the mountains. The monk did not unwrap it hastily, nor did he rush to taste it. Instead, he held the tangerine gently in his hand, turning it slowly as if it were a precious jewel. With deliberate care, he peeled the skin, feeling the textured surface, inhaling the sweet aroma that rose like a soft melody. Each segment was separated with intention, the tiny beads of juice glistening like droplets of morning dew. He ate the fruit slowly, savoring every bite as if it were the first and last. This simple act of eating, a moment so ordinary it often passes unnoticed, became a meditation, a profound presence. In that moment, the monk was not thinking about the past or worrying about the future. He was not distracted by thoughts or plans. He was simply here, fully awake to the experience of the tangerine in his hand, the taste on his tongue, the sunlight warming his skin. This is the essence of Zen presence, the total immersion in the now. We live in a world that pulls us relentlessly forward or backward. Memories of what has been and anxieties about what might come flood the mind, leaving little space for what is. We rush through meals, conversations, even the breath that sustains us. But the tangerine reminds us that life is found in these small moments of attention. Eating a tangerine becomes a doorway, a simple practice of mindfulness that can open vast spaces within. It teaches us that healing and being present do not always require grand gestures or escapes. Sometimes they begin with the care of a single fruit, the quiet gratitude for its sweetness, the gentle slowing down to taste it fully. When we engage with life in this way, everything transforms. A meal becomes a ritual, a walk, a breath, a prayer. The monk's eating was an offering, not just of gratitude for the fruit, but of reverence for the moment itself. There is a tenderness here that touches healing deeply. To be fully present is to be fully alive, to honor the preciousness of the ordinary. Imagine your own hand holding a tangerine, your senses awakening to its weight, its scent, its flavor. Notice how the world slows, how your thoughts soften, how your heart opens, just a little, to the miracle of this simple act. This story invites us to bring that same attention to everything, each word, each touch, each glance. To find stillness in movement, silence in sound, depth in the surface. Healing begins not by escaping the world, but by embracing it as it is. By eating the tangerine fully, we practice letting go of distraction, of hurry, of fragmentation. We remember that life's sweetness is always here, waiting to be tasted. So, take this story into your day. Let the act of eating, or any simple moment, become a bridge back to yourself, to the present, to the gentle unfolding of life as it moves through you, one segment at a time. In this there is peace, in this there is healing, and in this there is home. The sound of a bell is simple, yet profound, resonant and clear, carrying through the stillness like a breath shared between earth and sky. In the quiet courtyards of Zen monasteries, the ringing of the temple bell marks the rhythm of the day. It calls the monks from sleep to wakefulness, from silence to ceremony, from wandering thoughts to presence. There is a story of a novice monk who, upon hearing the bell, became restless. He thought, when will the bell ring again? What comes next? He was caught in anticipation, his mind leaping ahead, missing the moment itself. The master saw this and said, when the bell rings, that is the moment, not before, not after. The bell is not just a signal, it is an invitation, a call to return home to the present moment. When it sounds, it does not ask you to prepare or to reflect, but simply to listen. To be, this teaching holds a gentle urgency, because presence is not a distant achievement, but the very breath of life itself. It is not something to be earned, but something to be heard, like the bell that calls us back when we stray into distraction. We are often prisoners of time, caught in the past's shadows or the future's uncertainties. The bell reminds us that the only time truly alive is now. When it rings, it cuts through the noise of worry, regret, and planning. It opens a space where nothing is required but awareness. Imagine the bell's tone as it ripples outward. It starts as a clear note, pure and focused, then fades into silence, a silence that holds the echo and invites stillness. The sound and its absence become one, just as presence embraces both activity and rest. In that moment, we can meet ourselves, not the self burdened by labels or fears, but the self beneath it all, spacious and free. The bell also teaches about impermanence. Its sound is brief, never clinging, always moving on. This fleeting nature is not loss, but a dance, a reminder that all things arise and pass. To hear the bell fully is to embrace the flow of change, to be present with the flow of life. In practice, the bell's ringing becomes a meditation in sound. Each time it calls, it invites you to pause whatever you're doing, to close your eyes if you wish, to feel your feet on the earth, to listen, not just with your ears, but with your whole being. This moment of hearing is a gateway. It dissolves boundaries between inside and outside, self and other, sound and silence. It restores a kind of wholeness that often gets lost in the rush of life. There is a tenderness here, like wind moving through bamboo, light yet profound. The bell does not force you to change. It simply offers a chance to come back, to wake up, to be fully here. And healing begins in that coming home. Because when you are fully present, pain softens, fear fades, and the heart finds its natural rhythm again. The ringing bell asks no more than this: will you listen? Will you allow the moment to hold you, without judgment or rush? Will you rest in the sound, knowing that it is both beginning and end? The bell rings, and you are called, not to action, but to awareness. This is the sacred gift of the now. There is a story of a single leaf, hanging on a branch as autumn deepened around it. The tree was shedding its leaves, one by one, surrendering to the cycle of seasons with quiet grace. But this leaf, alone, clung softly, waiting, not out of fear, not out of stubbornness, but in a stillness so profound it seemed to hold the entire forest's breath. The wind swirled and sang its familiar song, carrying other leaves away on its breath, but the leaf remained, patient, tender, present. One day, when the moment ripened perfectly, the leaf let go. It floated down like a slow dance, touching the air gently, landing among its fallen brothers and sisters. This leaf is a teacher. It teaches us about waiting, not the kind of waiting that is anxious or restless, but the waiting that is open, awake, and deeply present. The waiting that knows when to hold on and when to release. We often think that to be present is to act, to do, to strive. But sometimes presence is found in the pause, in the leaf's quiet watchfulness, in the acceptance of the moment as it is. Healing here is a surrender to time. It is the trust that there is a season for everything, a season for holding tight, and a season for letting go. The leaf's waiting is not passive. It is a practice of deep awareness, a meditation in the art of presence. It is a reminder that life unfolds not on our schedule, but in its own rhythm, that rushing or resisting only leads us away from peace. In our lives, we may face moments when we are called to wait. Through grief, through change, through uncertainty. We may cling to what is familiar, afraid of what release might bring. Yet the leaf shows us that waiting with openness is not weakness, but strength. That the readiness to let go when the time is right is a gift we give ourselves. To be like the leaf is to embody trust. Trust in the flow of life. Trust that holding on does not define us. Trust that in the waiting, healing grows. Imagine yourself as that leaf, swaying gently, aware of the wind, yet at peace with the hold of the branch. No hurry, no struggle, only the fullness of the moment. And when the time comes to fall, not with fear, but with grace. This story invites us to meet our own seasons with kindness, to honor the pauses as much as the movements, to find in waiting the stillness that heals and transforms. In the leaf's dance of letting go, we find the essence of presence, a soft balance between holding and releasing, between being and becoming. May this leaf's quiet waiting inspire you to breathe deeply into your own moments of pause, knowing that presence is always here, waiting to be embraced. There is a moment, simple and fleeting, when a cup of tea is poured and the scent rises like a gentle mist, soft, elusive, yet profoundly present. It curls through the air, weaving a quiet invitation to pause, to breathe, to become fully awake. In the Zen tradition, tea is not just a drink. It is a ceremony, a meditation, a doorway into the now. The aroma carries stories of sun and soil, of patient hands that plucked leaves at dawn, of steam that dances in the morning light. To inhale the scent of tea is to touch something ancient and tender, a whisper from the earth to the soul. There is a story of a monk who, after a long day of walking and teaching, sat down to share tea with his students. As the first cup was poured, the room filled with the fragrance of the brew. The master said, "The scent of tea is the scent of this moment. It cannot be caught or held, only received." One student, eager to grasp meaning, asked, "But what if the scent fades? What if the moment slips away?" The master smiled. "That is the way of things. The scent does not cling, nor does the moment. To try to hold them is to miss their true gift." This teaching, so simple, yet so deep, reminds us that presence is not possession. It is not about holding tightly onto time or sensation, but about openness, receptivity, and gentle awareness. The scent of tea lingers briefly, then disperses, much like life's experiences. We may long to bottle them, to keep the sweetness forever. But Zen shows us that beauty is found in the ephemeral. It is in the letting go that we find fullness. When we bring this mindful presence to ordinary acts, lifting a cup, inhaling a fragrance, feeling the warmth in our hands, we awaken to life's subtle miracles. The everyday becomes sacred, the small becomes vast. In this way, healing and being present are inseparable. The breath that takes in the scent of tea is a breath that frees us from distraction, from regret, from anxious planning. It roots us in the here and now. Imagine sitting quietly, the steam rising from a cup, carrying the rich scent of earth and leaf. You inhale deeply, allowing yourself to be fully with this moment. No past, no future, just the warmth, the fragrance, the gentle unfolding of now. This is the practice Zen offers, a return to simplicity, to the sensory richness of presence, to the compassionate embrace of what is. The scent of tea teaches patience too. It reminds us that life's most precious moments cannot be rushed. They arrive and depart like the fragrance itself, but in their passing, they leave an imprint, a soft echo that changes us. As you carry this story with you, may you remember to find the scent in your own days, the aroma that calls you back from business, from worry, from the noise of the world. May the scent of tea be a gentle bell, ringing softly in your heart, a reminder that healing and presence are always available, in every breath, in every moment, if only we choose to receive them. Among the many quiet wonders of nature, bamboo stands as a gentle teacher of presence and resilience. Its slender stalks rise tall and flexible, bending gracefully with the wind rather than resisting. The sound of bamboo leaves rustling, a soft whisper on the breeze, carries lessons in listening, deep, attentive, and alive. There is a story of a traveler who came upon a bamboo grove during a storm. The wind howled fiercely, threatening to uproot lesser trees, yet the bamboo swayed with a fluidity that seemed almost otherworldly. The traveler paused, captivated by the chorus of sound, the rustling leaves, the creaking stalks, the symphony of movement. An old hermit, who had lived among the bamboo for years, approached and said, "To listen to bamboo is to listen to the breath of the world. It teaches us how to be fully present, how to bend without breaking, how to find stillness within motion." Listening to bamboo is an invitation to embrace life's impermanence and change with grace. The bamboo does not resist the storm. It dances with it, transforming potential destruction into a song of resilience. In its movement, it reveals the delicate balance between strength and surrender. This story echoes the essence of presence, to hold space for whatever arises without clinging or aversion, to listen not just with the ears, but with the whole being, to the sounds of the world and to the silence between. The rustling of bamboo invites us to quiet the mind's chatter and tune into the subtle rhythms beneath. It teaches that healing comes from acceptance, from the willingness to move with life's currents rather than against them. Imagine standing in a bamboo grove, feeling the wind caress your skin, hearing the leaves murmur secrets older than time. Each sound is a note in the symphony of presence, each movement a breath in the dance of being. When we listen deeply, like to the bamboo, we awaken to the richness of the moment. We shed the weight of judgment and expectation. We open to a tenderness that is both fragile and fierce. In this listening, we find a reflection of ourselves, flexible yet rooted, silent yet expressive, simple yet profound. The bamboo's whisper becomes a mirror for our own breath, a gentle reminder that presence is the foundation of healing and peace. As you carry this story with you, may you remember to listen, not just to bamboo, but to your own heart, to the wind within, to the spaces between your thoughts. May your days be filled with the soft music of presence, like wind weaving through bamboo, weightless, compassionate, and endlessly alive. In the vast unfolding of Buddhist tradition, there is a moment whispered across centuries, a teaching unlike any other, known simply as the Flower Sermon. It is said that the Buddha, gathered with his disciples beneath the dappled shade of ancient trees, held up a single flower. No words followed, no chants, no doctrine, only the silent gesture of offering the blossom. For a long moment, silence held the space between them. Then, a disciple named Markayapa smiled, a smile that spoke of understanding beyond language, beyond thought. In that smile, the essence of the teaching was passed, not through speech, but through presence. This story is not about flowers or sermons. It is about connection, between teacher and student, between mind and heart, between silence and revelation. It is about the profound communication that arises when words fall away and something deeper takes their place. The flower sermon invites us to witness how true teaching can transcend explanation. Like a flower blooming in the stillness, it unfolds naturally, without force or urgency. It reminds us that compassion and connection arise not from the need to fix or explain, but from the gentle invitation to be fully present with another. In this presence, healing blooms. It is not a quick fix, but a slow awakening to the truth that we are not separate, that the divisions we perceive are often made of words and stories rather than reality. Imagine a moment when words fail you, when you meet someone's gaze and feel understood without a single sentence exchanged. This is the flower's language. It is quiet, radiant, and full of grace. The Buddha's silent offering asks us to listen differently, to see not with eyes clouded by expectation, but with hearts open to the mystery of connection. It challenges us to drop our attachments to certainty and embrace the vulnerability of being truly seen and seen without judgment. Compassion in this light is not a grand gesture, but the simple willingness to be present, to hold space for the other without needing to change or rescue, to offer a smile, a glance, a moment of stillness that says, "You are here. You are enough." This story, like a flower in bloom, touches something timeless within us. It beckons us to cultivate that same presence in our own lives, through kindness, listening, and the soft power of silence. As we carry this teaching forward, may we remember the power of a single gesture, the healing that happens not in words, but in the quiet exchange of being. May we learn to offer our own flowers, our openness, our compassion, our presence, to those we meet along the way. In that offering, connection blooms. In that connection, we find the roots of healing and the petals of peace. In a small, quiet village nestled between misty mountains, there lived a humble monk known for his gentle presence and open heart. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, a stranger crept into the monastery, not with reverence but with intent to steal. His footsteps were soft, his eyes wary, but his spirit burdened by desperation. The monk noticed, not with anger or fear, but with calm curiosity. Instead of calling for guards or chasing the intruder away, he invited the man to sit and share a cup of tea. The thief, surprised and hesitant, accepted. As the warm liquid flowed into their cups, the tension between them dissolved. Words began to flow, not accusations but stories. The thief spoke of hunger, loneliness, and a heart weighed down by regret. The monk listened without judgment, offering only a quiet presence that spoke louder than any sermon. Night deepened, and the thief found himself not wanting to steal anymore, not because of fear of punishment, but because of the unexpected kindness he had been shown. This is the story of the thief who stayed for tea. It teaches us that true compassion is not about punishment or control, but about understanding and connection. Healing does not come from force or judgment, but from the simple act of opening a space for another to be seen and heard. The monk's invitation to tea was a radical act, an offering of trust and acceptance that reached beyond the man's past actions. It was a reminder that beneath every desperate gesture is a human yearning for belonging and peace. In this story, tea is more than a drink. It is a symbol of warmth, hospitality, and the possibility of transformation. The shared cup becomes a bridge across fear and alienation, a sacred space where healing can begin. How often do we close our doors to those we fear or misunderstand? How often do we judge before we listen? The thief's story invites us to challenge these instincts and to cultivate a heart wide enough to include even the unexpected. Healing, in this light, is an act of radical openness. It asks us to meet the stranger not with suspicion, but with kindness, to offer not condemnation, but a cup of tea and a moment of grace. This story whispers to us through the ages. No one is beyond the reach of compassion. No wound is too deep to touch with gentleness. And sometimes, The simplest gestures, the sharing of warmth, the offering of presence, are the most profound. As you carry this story with you, may it soften the edges of fear and judgment within. May it inspire you to create your own spaces of welcome and healing, where even the thief can find a place at the table. In this shared humanity, we discover the roots of true connection and the path to lasting peace. In a quiet forest path, where shadows play among the ancient trees and the earth breathes softly beneath the leaves, there is a small cairn, a simple stack of stones, weathered and worn. It is said that this cairn was built in memory of a lost child, a tender marker of grief and love intertwined. The story begins with a family who once walked these woods, their child wandering ahead, curious and full of wonder. In a moment of distracted care, the child slipped away, disappearing into the folds of the forest. The search was long and filled with fear, the days heavy with silence and waiting. When the child could not be found, the family gathered stones, each one placed carefully, one for a memory, one for a prayer, one for the hope that would never fully fade. The cairn grew, a quiet monument not just to loss, but to presence, the presence of love that refuses to vanish, even in absence. This story carries with it the gentle power of bearing witness. It reminds us that connection does not end with separation. That grief, though profound, is held within the heart's vast capacity for compassion. The stone cairn becomes a symbol, not of what was lost, but of what endures. In the ebb and flow of life, we all encounter moments of disappearance, loss of people, of possibilities, of parts of ourselves. These moments carve hollows within us, spaces that can feel empty and cold. Yet the story of the lost child teaches us that these hollows can be filled with a different kind of fullness. The fullness of remembrance and compassionate presence. Imagine the cairn, standing quietly amid the forest's embrace, stones balanced with care, each one a testament to love's persistence. It is not a shrine of sorrow alone, but a living altar to healing, the place where grief meets acceptance, where loss transforms into a deepening of the heart. This transformation is at the heart of compassion and connection. To carry another's pain without being overwhelmed, to honor absence while embracing presence, to build stones of memory and kindness that support us through the darkest paths. The forest itself seems to hold this lesson, with its cycles of growth and decay, its whispers of renewal. It teaches us that life is a continuum, not a series of breaks, that even in loss we are never truly alone. As you listen to this story, may you feel the gentle strength of the stones. May you find comfort in the knowledge that love, like the cairn, can hold space for what is missing and what remains. May it inspire you to be a bearer of presence, a builder of compassionate altars in your own life, to offer your heart as a resting place for others' pain, and to find in that offering a wellspring of healing. The lost child may have vanished from sight, but the stones say you are remembered, you are held, you are loved, and in that remembrance, we all find the light that guides us home. In the quiet pre-dawn hours of an ancient village, the first sound that stirs the world awake is the rooster's cry. Sharp and clear, it cuts through the darkness like a gentle summons, a call to rise, to be present, to meet the new day as it unfolds. There is a Zen story of a monk who lived near such a village, whose practice was deeply rooted in the rhythm of the natural world. One morning, as the rooster's cry echoed through the misty fields, the monk sat in meditation, fully awake to the sound. It was not merely noise, it was a message, a reminder that presence begins with awakening. A disciple asked him, "Master, how can such a simple sound carry such weight?" The monk smiled softly and said, "When the rooster cried, it was not just the bird's voice. It was the universe speaking through him, reminding us that each moment calls us to wakefulness." This story invites us to listen beyond the surface of sound, beyond the familiar, and to hear the sacred in the everyday. The rooster's cry is a symbol of awakening, not just from sleep, but from the slumber of distraction, of automatic living, of being lost in thoughts of past and future. To hear the rooster is to be called into the fullness of the present, to stand in the here and now with open eyes and a willing heart. The call to wakefulness is also a call to compassion and connection. When we awaken to the moment, we awaken to the presence of others, the shared breath, the common journey. The rooster's cry bridges the solitude of dawn with the community of day. This simple act of awakening carries healing power. It softens the barriers between self and other, between mind and heart. It grounds us in a reality that is immediate, alive, and shared. Imagine the chill of early morning air, the sky slowly brightening, the land bathed in soft light as the rooster's cry ripples through the stillness. In that moment, everything is new, everything is possible, the past falls away, the future has not yet arrived. There is only this breath, this sound, this life. The story of the rooster's cry is a meditation on the sacredness of presence. It reminds us that healing often begins with a single moment of awakening, that the path to peace is not found by fleeing, but by listening deeply to the world, to ourselves, to the call that invites us to arise and be fully here. May this story carry you into your own mornings, your own moments of stillness. May you hear the call, not just as sound, but as an invitation to live with tenderness, to embrace the day with compassion, to find connection in the unfolding light. And when the rooster cries, may you rise, not just from sleep, but into the fullness of your own being. In the soft light of early morning, two strangers meet at the edge of a bustling market. Their eyes meet briefly, and without hesitation, they reach out. An act so common, so ordinary, the handshake. Yet in this simple gesture, there lies a universe of meaning waiting to be uncovered. There is a Zen story of two monks who encountered each other after many years apart. One reached out for a handshake, a greeting customary and expected. The other responded with an open hand, but empty. No grasp, no pressure, only a gentle offering of space. The first monk was puzzled, even unsettled. Why offer an empty handshake? Was it refusal? Mockery? The second monk smiled softly and said, "An empty hand carries no burden, holds no expectation, and welcomes fully." This story invites us to reflect on the ways we connect and the weight we bring into our interactions. The empty handshake symbolizes presence without possession. It is a gesture free of grasping, free of demands, free of the need to control or claim. In our daily lives, our connections are often tangled with expectations of outcomes, of favors, of validations. We approach relationships carrying the weight of past disappointments, of future hopes, sometimes squeezing so tightly that the very contact we seek becomes strained or fractured. The empty handshake reminds us of a different path, one of openness and lightness, of offering ourselves fully without clutching. It is an invitation to meet others, not as objects to be possessed or challenges to be overcome, but as fellow travelers sharing a moment of mutual presence. Imagine the softness in a handshake that asks nothing and holds everything, a connection that is not about possession, but about shared space. Such a handshake carries healing in its simplicity, a balm to the isolation that clings when we grasp too tightly. This act echoes the natural world's rhythms, the wind that brushes without holding, the river that flows without resistance. In these movements, there is freedom and compassion entwined. In Zen, the gesture of an empty hand is a teaching on non-attachment and trust. It challenges us to release the need to control outcomes, to be seen a certain way, to receive specific responses. Instead, it asks us to be fully present in the giving itself. When we offer an empty handshake, we say, "I am here, open, and without expectation." We invite the other to meet us as we are, free and whole. Healing begins in this space of freedom, from the burdens of judgment, from the chains of past wounds, from the pressures of future demands. It begins in the simple courage to show up with an open hand, a soft heart, and a willingness to connect without grasp. As you carry this story with you, may you remember the power of the empty handshake, not just as a gesture between hands, but as a metaphor for your approach to life and relationships. May your connections be light-free and alive, rooted in presence, held in compassion. And may you find in each meeting the quiet healing that comes from openness and trust. A student once approached a wise Zen master, eager to absorb the teachings that promised enlightenment. The master invited the student to sit and poured tea into a delicate cup. As the cup filled, it began to overflow, spilling onto the floor. The student, alarmed, exclaimed, "Stop, the cup is full. No more will fit." The master smiled gently and said, "Like this cup, your mind is full of your own opinions and assumptions. How can I show you the truth unless you first empty your cup?" This story, simple yet profound, captures the essence of transformation in Zen, the readiness to let go, to release the clutter of preconceived notions, and to make space for true insight. In our lives, we often carry a mind brimming with thoughts, judgments, and attachments. We hold tightly to beliefs, fears, and identities, much like the student clutching a full cup. But enlightenment, healing, and presence require emptiness, a clearing where new understanding can arise. The overflowing tea becomes a metaphor for the restless mind, spilling over with noise that obscures clarity. The master's teaching is a tender invitation to surrender control, to embrace humility, and to open ourselves to the unknown. Transformation begins not by filling, but by emptying. Imagine the sensation of setting down your full cup, feeling the relief of lightness as the burden slips away. It is in this spaciousness that the heart and mind can meet reality directly, without filters or resistance. This emptying is not loss, but gain, a gaining of freedom and fresh perspective. Like a garden cleared of weeds, the soil becomes fertile for new growth. In Zen practice, the act of emptying is continuous. It is a dance between knowing and unknowing, between presence and release. Each moment invites us to pour out what no longer serves, creating room for deeper insight. The student's moment of realization is a mirror for our own journeys. We are called to notice where our cups are full, where we resist change or cling to old stories, and to choose openness instead. This choice is an act of compassion toward ourselves. It softens the grip of fear and judgment, inviting peace to flow in. As you carry this story with you, may you find courage to set down your full cup, to welcome emptiness as a space of possibility, to trust that in the stillness left behind, enlightenment quietly waits. Transformation is not a distant goal, but a gentle unfolding, a cup emptied and filled anew, moment by moment. There is a story of a Zen master whose teaching was both simple and profound. Instead of long lectures or complex texts, he would sit with his students and, with a single brushstroke, draw a perfect circle. This circle, complete and unbroken, was both an answer and a question, an invitation to see beyond words. One day, a student asked, "Master, what does the circle mean?" The master smiled, dipped his brush again, and drew another circle, this time incomplete, open, suggesting movement and possibility. The student was puzzled. The master said softly, "The circle is everything and nothing. It is the fullness of presence, the emptiness of potential. It holds the beginning and the end, the form and the formless." This story draws us into the heart of transformation and insight. The delicate balance between completeness and openness, certainty and mystery. The circle becomes a mirror for our own journey. We long for wholeness, for answers, for a place where everything fits neatly. Yet true insight reveals that wholeness is not a static state but a living flow. The circle is both boundary and space. It contains, yet invites expansion. Like the master's brushstroke, our moments of awakening are both precise and fluid. They point to a reality beyond concepts, where opposites meet and dissolve. Healing unfolds here, in the space between what we know and what we are willing to embrace as unknown. This teaching encourages us to hold paradox with tenderness, to be complete and incomplete, to be rooted and free, to find peace in the dance of form and emptiness. Imagine standing before the Master's circle, seeing it not as a closed shape but as a living symbol. It holds your doubts and your faith, your fears and your hopes. It is a reminder that transformation is not about fixing or finishing, but about being present to the unfolding mystery of life. The Master's circles invite us to let go of rigid expectations and to open ourselves to the flow of becoming. They teach that insight arises not from grasping, but from releasing, not from closing, but from welcoming. As you carry this story within you, may you find the courage to draw your own circles, to embrace your journey with all its completeness and gaps, its endings and beginnings. May you learn to sit quietly with mystery, to trust the brushstroke of your own presence, and to find healing in the seamless dance of form and emptiness. The circle turns, endlessly and gently, and in its turning so do we. There is an ancient story about a student who trained diligently under a wise master. For years, the student was tasked with a simple chore, carrying water from a distant well to the temple. Day after day, the journey was the same: walk to the well, fill the bucket, and carry it back carefully, mindful of every step. After some time, the student grew restless and asked the master, "When will I be free of this task? When will I receive the true teaching?" The master replied with a quiet smile, "You are carrying water again." This phrase, carrying water again, becomes a powerful metaphor for the unfolding of insight and healing. It reminds us that transformation is not a sudden event, but a continuous practice, a returning to the ordinary with fresh eyes. We often look for dramatic shifts, for breakthroughs that change everything in an instant. Yet, like the student, we find that the path is made up of repetition, of simple acts done with presence and care. Carrying water again teaches us that enlightenment and healing are found in the rhythm of daily life, in the awareness brought to each moment, no matter how small or mundane. Imagine the student's footsteps, the weight of the bucket balanced carefully, the sound of water sloshing softly. Each journey is an opportunity to return to the body, to the breath, to the here and now. This practice asks for patience and humility. It asks us to let go of the need to arrive somewhere different and to embrace the sacredness of the present task. In this way, the act of carrying water is also an act of letting go of the idea that something more is needed, letting go of the restlessness that pulls us away from peace. Healing unfolds in this surrender, in the willingness to be present, again and again, with the simple truth of now. The Master's words are not a dismissal, but an invitation to find depth in the ordinary, to find meaning in repetition, to find freedom in the act of returning. As you carry this story with you, may you see your own daily tasks, the washing of dishes, the walking to work, the moments of stillness between activities, as your own carrying of water. May each step become a meditation, each breath a prayer, each moment a chance to touch the source of healing and insight. Because the path is not elsewhere, it is here, it is now, it is carrying water again. In the hush of a dimly lit room, a master and student sat together, a single candle burning between them. The flame flickered gently, casting shadows that danced softly on the walls, a silent witness to a moment charged with meaning. Without a word, the master reached out and passed the candle to the student, who received it with reverence. The light did not diminish. Instead, it was shared, transferred with care from one hand to another, without losing its warmth or brilliance. This silent exchange holds a profound teaching about transformation and insight. The passing of light from one presence to another, a symbol of knowledge not spoken but lived. The candle's flame is fragile yet resilient. It requires gentle tending, openness, and a steady breath to sustain its glow, like the flame. Wisdom and healing cannot be grasped tightly. They must be received with humility and passed on with compassion. The silence between the master and student speaks volumes. It is the space where words fall away and something deeper is conveyed: trust, connection, presence. It reminds us that true insight often transcends language and concept, arriving in moments of shared being. In this passing of the candle, we see the nature of transformation as a relational act. It is not possession, but participation. Not accumulation, but offering. Imagine the light warming your hands, the softness of the flame's glow, the calm in the quiet room. In that gentle moment, healing stirs, not as a sudden burst, but as a steady flame that can illuminate even the darkest corners. This story invites us to reflect on how we receive and share our own light, how we hold space for others' journeys, how we pass on compassion and presence in ways that need no words. The candle also teaches about impermanence. Its flame, while beautiful, is vulnerable. It flickers with every breath, reminding us that life's light must be cherished, nourished, and shared before it passes. Healing and insight come not from holding tightly to our own light, but from extending it with open hands, knowing that in giving we are made whole. As you carry this story, may you feel the warmth of the flame within you, the quiet light of presence that never truly fades. May you find the courage to receive it in silence, and the grace to pass it on with tenderness. In this shared illumination, we discover the heart of transformation, the endless dance of giving and receiving, of light passing softly, quietly from one soul to another. There is an old Zen story of a traveler who came upon a great gate in the middle of a forest path. The gate was imposing, tall, solid, with a heavy wooden frame. It seemed to block the way forward, a barrier to something unknown beyond. The traveler tried to push it open, but it would not budge. He pulled and heaved, straining against the weight. Exhausted, he sat down and rested beneath the gate's shadow. As he caught his breath, he noticed something curious. The gate was not opening outward, but inward. It was a gate that invited him not to push forward, but to turn inward. With gentle curiosity, the traveler stood and faced the gate again. This time, instead of forcing it open, he stepped back and reached inward, into his own heart, into his own presence. Slowly, effortlessly, the gate swung open from within, revealing a path that was not outside, but inside. This story speaks to the nature of transformation and insight. The profound realization that the gates we seek to open are not always external obstacles, but inner doors. We spend much of our lives searching outside ourselves for answers, for healing, for peace. We push against walls, climb mountains, cross rivers, all in hopes of finding what will free us. Yet the Zen teaching whispers that the true gate is the one within. The gate that opens inward is the doorway to self-awareness, to acceptance, to presence. It invites us to turn toward our own being with gentleness, rather than resist or escape. Imagine the weight of that gate, the effort of trying to force it open, and then the ease when the key turns inward. That turning is not a struggle but a surrender, a release of control and a welcoming of what is. This inward journey is often met with resistance, fear of what we might find inside, discomfort with stillness, or attachment to old identities. Yet it is in this turning inward that healing begins. It is where insight dawns, not as a flash of revelation, but as a quiet unfolding. The gate's opening invites us to see ourselves as both traveler and path, seeker and destination. It reminds us that transformation is less about changing who we are and more about uncovering who we already are beneath the layers. This story asks us to consider, where are we pushing against gates that can only open from within? What if the struggle is not to move forward, but to turn inward with compassion? In turning inward, we find the stillness that holds us, the light that guides us, the love that heals us. The gate that opens inward is the invitation to come home, May you carry this story with you as a gentle reminder that the journey toward healing, presence, and insight is not a path laid out before you, but a gate waiting to be opened within. And as you turn the key, may the gate swing wide, revealing the vast, tender landscape of your own heart. There is a delicate art in undoing, a subtle unraveling, not of destruction, but of gentle release. Like the soft whisper of wind weaving through bamboo, this undoing invites us to let go of tension, expectation, and the tight grip of certainty. It is an unfastening of the self, a yielding that opens space for healing and presence to bloom. Imagine a thread woven tightly through the fabric of your being, binding you to patterns of thought, habit, and feeling. Over time, these threads accumulate, some vibrant and life-affirming, others frayed and worn, tangled with pain and resistance. The gentle undoing is not a harsh cutting or tearing, but a tender loosening. Each knot met with kindness, each tension eased by breath. This unfolding recalls the way a gardener prunes a bonsai tree, removing not to destroy, but to nurture new growth. Each snip is deliberate and patient, honoring the tree's natural form, allowing it space to thrive. So too does the gentle undoing honor the layers of our experience, inviting us to release only what no longer serves, and to do so with compassion. The Zen tradition often speaks of the great undoing, a moment when the mind relinquishes its grasp and the heart opens wide. It is not a one-time event, but a continuous practice. Like the tide that pulls away the sand, revealing the shore beneath, this undoing exposes the quiet ground of being beneath the noise. There is profound courage in this practice. To undo is to face the parts of ourselves we might wish to hide, our fears, regrets, wounds. But to meet them with gentleness transforms fear into tenderness. It teaches that healing is not about fixing or forcing, but about allowing. Allowing ourselves to be fragile, to be whole, to be imperfectly human. Consider the metaphor of wind through bamboo, weightless yet rooted. The bamboo does not resist the wind's caress but bends, yielding without breaking. This is the heart of the gentle undoing, a paradox of strength and softness, presence and release. It shows us how to live with openness, how to move through life without losing ourselves to rigidity or despair. As we practice this gentle undoing, we begin to notice the spaces between our thoughts, the silent pauses that often go unnoticed. In these pauses, healing unfolds, like the stillness that follows a storm. They hold the promise of renewal. This unfolding is not a retreat from the world, but a deep engagement with it. It is a surrender that empowers, a letting go that invites fullness. Through undoing, we reclaim our capacity to be present, to be here now with whatever arises. In daily life, the gentle undoing might look like a breath, held softly after frustration, a moment of pause before reaction, a choice to release judgment instead of tightening grip. It is found in the quiet moments, the closing of eyes in the midst of chaos, the softening of a clenched fist, the whispered forgiveness whispered first to ourselves. The process is gradual, like the unfurling of a fern in the morning light, slow, tender, and alive. Each day offers new opportunities to loosen old patterns, to welcome what is with open arms, and to find peace in the gentle dance of coming undone. Healing, in this light, is less a destination and more a path, one walked with patience and grace. It asks us to be gentle with our progress, to honor every step, and to trust the process even when the way seems unclear. As you carry this practice forward, may you find comfort in the knowledge that undoing is a form of deep care, compassionate tending to the garden of your soul. May you allow yourself to soften where you have been hard, to release where you have been holding too tightly, and to rest in the beauty of what remains. The gentle undoing is an invitation to return home, to the tender heart that has always been waiting beneath the layers of stress and struggle. Like the wind weaving softly through bamboo, may you move through life with lightness and grace, unfolding gently, healing deeply, and being fully present. There is a gentle teaching in Zen that speaks to the heart of our human experience, that there is nothing to hold and yet everything to feel. This paradox captures the delicate balance between surrender and presence, between emptiness and fullness, a truth that unfolds quietly, like the wind through bamboo, weightless yet deeply rooted. Imagine a hand reaching out to grasp the sky. It is a beautiful gesture, but ultimately impossible. The sky slips through the fingers, vast and untethered. Yet in that reaching, there is an invitation to open, to let go of the need to possess, and to feel the boundless expanse with nothing clutched, nothing confined. This is the heart of the practice, to release our grasp on permanence, on control, on certainty, to rest in the openness of not holding, and to discover that in this space, there is a richness beyond measure. Life often teaches us to hold tight, to cling to what is familiar, to guard our stories, to protect ourselves from the unknown. We gather the moments like treasures, the pain like armor, the fears like chains. But Zen gently asks us to loosen our grip, not to lose, but to find freedom. There is a story of a monk who carried a heavy load of grief. For years, he sought to hold on to the memory of what was lost, afraid that letting go would mean forgetting. One day, an elder told him, "There is nothing to hold, but everything to feel. Release your hands and open your heart." At first, the monk resisted. How could he let go of what mattered most? But slowly, he began to understand that holding on too tightly was the true weight. In releasing, he did not lose the memory. He allowed it to transform, to breathe, to become a part of his living presence. To feel everything without holding anything is to engage with life fully and vulnerably. It is to welcome joy and sorrow, hope and fear, not as possessions or enemies, but as passing guests in the house of the heart. This practice asks us to trust the flow, to be like bamboo that bends with the wind without breaking, that dances with the seasons without resistance. It is not a call to numbness or detachment, but to compassionate engagement, a way of being that embraces the fullness of experience without grasping or pushing away. Consider the waves of the ocean. They rise and fall, come and go, yet the water remains. We are both the waves, our emotions, our stories, and the vast ocean beneath, our essential being. When we stop holding onto the waves, we feel the depth and breadth of the ocean's peace. In moments of pain, it may feel unbearable to let go. Yet, by allowing ourselves to feel fully, without clutching or rejecting, we begin to move through suffering with grace. The feelings flow like wind through bamboo, softening the rigidity of the heart and opening space for healing. This openness is not weakness but profound strength. It is the courage to be vulnerable, to be present with what is, to hold nothing and feel everything. As you carry this teaching forward, may you find comfort in the knowledge that you do not need to hold on to anything to be whole. May you welcome each feeling as it comes, without fear, without resistance, and find in this gentle surrender a deep and lasting peace. Like the wind weaving through the bamboo, may your heart move freely, light, compassionate,